Jake Green was released from prison after serving 7 years in solitary confinement. Over the next 2 years, he makes a huge sum of money via gambling. He's ready to exact his revenge on Matcha, the violent casino owner who sentenced Jake to prison. Doctors warn Jake he has a rare condition and will die in 3 days. Matcha also places a hit on him. Loan sharks Zach and Abby demand Jake's money and complete loyalty in exchange for protection. Jake agrees, and through narration and flashbacks, we follow him through at least 3 days of scheming, danger, and atonement. Spoiler ahead, watch out. After 7 years in prison, Cockney gambler Jake Green is finally released. 2 years following his release, Jake and his brother Billy go to one of the area's top casinos with the goal of recovering the cash that was owed to them by the owner, criminal boss Dorothy Macha. Ignoring his bodyguard Paul's advice, he invites Jake to join his private game. Jake pauses to use the elevator due to his claustrophobia, but the other bodyguards tell him that they have to climb 20 levels, so he gives in and journeys through the elevator. Jake's first bet is a chip throw against another player at the table, and he loses. Now, this is actually on purpose. He is tricking Matcha into an erroneous sense of security so that when he bets with him again, he wins this time. Billy and Jake hurry out of the casino with their suitcases full of cash. On their way out, Zach stops them and tells them that they are in danger and that he has the ability to save them before handing Jake his card. Jake settles to take the stairs this time, but just before he has time to take a single step, he passes out and falls down as the card reveals that he should take the elevator. While Jake is being carried to the hospital, Matcha shares his worries with Paul. Jake is surely seeking more revenge after 7 years in prison, especially after the incident with his sister-in-law, so Matcha instructs Paul to find the best hitman to get rid of him. At the hospital, Jake is advised that no root cause behind the blackout can be detected at first sight, so he is advised to return home and rest while waiting for the blood test results. Billy returns back to his own house while Jake takes the bodyguards for security. However, all the bodyguards are shot as soon as they arrive. The only reason why he escapes is that he finds a card on the ground that reads, "Pick this up," so he bends down. He leaves in his car, yet the driver is also shot. Thankfully, Zach arrives at the right time to save his life and take him away. Sorter, the hitman, has no idea why he is missed. He explains to Matcha that he missed it because he got a bad feeling. In the meantime, Zach invites Jake to visit his partner, Abby, who has somehow obtained Jake's medical records. The test results show that Jake has a rare blood disorder that will kill him within 3 days. The men promise Jake their security in exchange for 2 mandatory conditions. They take all his money and should do everything they want, including answering all questions. They offer him 3 hours to make a decision, but Jake leaves without saying anything, given that he believes they are tricking him. The results he receives at the hospital are the same, but Jake believes the lab must have been paid for by Zach and Abby, so he seeks another opinion from his private doctor, who likewise provides the same prediction. After frightening him with his rifle to ensure that he is not being paid, Jake recognizes he has no choice but to accept the men's agreement after withdrawing money from the bank. While they go for a ride, Abby discloses that they are loan sharks and will be lending Jake's money. After leaving the money off at their first client, Abby wants Jake to tell him everything about his past with Matcha. Matcha used to have 3 extremely foolish men working under him, known as the 3 Eddies. They lost their card man prior to a big game and heard Jake had been an excellent player, so they asked him to take his position. Jake wanted to reject, but the group was threatening Billy's family, so he had to agree to protect everyone. During the game, however, the other guys at the table began to insult Jake and his mother. Jake refused to accept that, so he started a gunfight. The electricity went out, the money went away, and someone had dropped his name, and Jake was being questioned by the police. To prevent him from speaking, they frightened his niece and mistakenly killed his sister-in-law when she rushed to protect her daughter. Jake was sentenced to 7 years in prison for refusing to inform the cops that Matcha was the organizer of the games. After seeing several clients, Zach assigns Jake to a motel. Meanwhile, Matcha and Paul arrange a visit to a criminal boss, Sam Gold. However, Gold never receives guests, so they meet with his advisor, Lily Walker, who agrees to negotiate a powder deal with Matcha. She also tells him that Gold dislikes publicity and doesn't offer second chances. Later, Jake offers Zach and Abby more cash before being questioned about his time in jail. Jake was offered 2 options, 14 years of normal time or 7 years in solitary existence, and he picked solitary. His cell was between 2 men, a chess expert and a con man who had been there for an extended period and knew all that about each other despite never speaking. During the first 5 years of Jake's sentence, The three of them communicated by writing notes on library books, which is how Jake discovered their formula for winning any game on anywhere in the world. The two men were preparing a prison escape and offered to take Jake with them, but they vanished without a word, leaving Jake behind. When he was let go 2 years later, he discovered that those two guys had stolen all of his money and had also left behind a note stating that you can only get wiser by playing a smarter opponent. So Jake began utilizing the formula to make himself wealthy at numerous casinos. As the days come and go, Jake continues to work by visiting different clients and offering his own money. He must also threaten them if they do not pay. Meanwhile, Avi and Zach are chaining one side of a wall to a vehicle so that they can smash the wall and take the safe on their opposite side. This safe stores the powder that Matcha promised Lily. So after he discovers he has been robbed, he sends Paul to resolve the situation, regardless of what it requires. Paul moves to see their competitor, Triad Kingpin Lord John, who agrees to provide them with the powder on such short notice, but only at a hefty rate. Jake, Zach, Avi, and their team head to the hotel where the exchange will take place. They get into a room close to the thugs, make a hole in the wall, and pump sleeping gas, putting both Matcha's and John's men to sleep. Then they steal the money and powder, fabricating evidence to make it appear that Matcha robbed John and vice versa. Sometime later, Jake receives a call from Billy, who warns him that he had been asking about and has discovered that Zach and Avi are so deadly that not even gold can touch them, and that Jake should leave immediately. Jake doesn't listen and returns to work, in which he is scheduled to shoot a terrified client. He refuses and attempts to shoot Avi instead, but he finds the gun empty just as Avi knocks him unconscious. Jake wakes up hours later in the motel and receives a call from Avi stating he has survived the third day and is expected to get a medical checkup. After having been visited by his niece and Billy, who leaves him a revolver just in case, Jake visits his doctor, who verifies that the diagnosis is incorrect and that Jake is well. He attempts to call Avi and demand answers, but Avi simply tells him he will have to wait. Meanwhile, Paul has been accumulating information, and Jake's name has come up as a factor in all of the issues his troops have been experiencing, so Matcha instructs him to kill him. When Jake arrives at the motel, Avi and Zach await him and warn him that Matcha's men are waiting inside the room. Jake leaves and the men pursue him, but he manages to flee from them, particularly when one of the thugs arrives and accidentally kills himself. The body is discovered by the other thugs, who believe Jake is responsible. Jake visits Avi and Zach at their office, where they admit they've always suspected Chuck hadn't told them the whole truth regarding his previous agreement with the Eddies. Those three clowns had been waiting for Jake after he was out of prison to kill him because what he had done got them fired by Matcha. In order to safeguard his life, he proposed to the Eddies a deal. Every month, he would offer them 3% of any funds that they gave him. At first, only one Eddie agreed. However, once they saw he maintained his deal, the others all joined at 4%. In reality, Jake was paying one Eddie using another Eddie's money, so he hadn't been losing anything. They ran out of money for lending, so they borrowed from Matcha. After playing with the formula and becoming wealthy, Jake decided to take a vacation with his brother and niece. And this was when Matcha killed the Eddies for failing to repay him. Matcha is eating dinner at a luxury restaurant during which he is contacted by his henchman, who informs him that Jake has escaped. Sorter spots John's lover clothed as a waitress and shoots her prior to leaving the restaurant to pursue her driver. However, his shooting is still incorrect, and he is only allowed to harm her, not kill her. So before dying, the woman manages to shoot Matcha's finger. Then Sorter is sent to Lord John's lair to kill him and his men. Back to Jake. He continues talking with Zach and Avi while they play golf on a rooftop. They explain to him that nobody ever sees gold given that he does not exist. He is simply a representation of ego and the personification of greed, with power only over those who invest in him. So Jake needs to adjust the rules about what he permits to control him. Jake then withdraws the rest of the cash from the bank and donates it prior to sneaking into Matcha's bedroom. Jake apologizes to Matcha for cheating him with his money, acknowledges him as the superior criminal boss, and informs him he has made a donation in his name before departing. Jake takes the elevator to deal with his worries, but it becomes stuck on the 13th floor. While fighting back a panic attack, he holds a debate in his head with his ego about eventually leaving the game being a free man. Once the elevator is operational again, Jake arrives on the ground floor to see Matcha standing with a gun, driven insane by his own vanity. Jake, on the other hand, is at ease with himself and effortlessly goes past him, which upsets Matcha given that he cannot comprehend how someone wouldn't be afraid of him. He starts crying as he realizes how severely humiliated he has been. The next morning, Paul brings Matcha all of the local newspapers so he can see his name written all over them. Jake wasn't lying when he stated he made a donation in Matcha's name, and every person person now believes the casino owner cares about the neighborhood. Matcha is pleased to accept the credit, but his joy is temporary. Paul also tells him that Jake holds the powder and has been playing it all along. Paul, Sorter, and the rest of Matcha's henchmen head to see Billy, who hides his daughter in a cupboard after realizing one of his bodyguards has betrayed him. When he is discovered, the guys continue torturing him while interrogating him, refusing to believe him when he claims he does not know the whereabouts of Jake and the powder. Paul's methods gradually grow worse, and Sorter becomes uneasy, especially when they force the girl out of the cupboard after hearing her sob. Sorter rejects his ego and begins killing his fellow henchmen, yet he also gets killed. At this point, Lily visits Matcha. She offers him a wreath brought by Gold, who is upset at seeing Matcha's name all over newspapers because he dislikes popularity. Lily also reminds him that Matcha's time is over and he will not have a second chance, sending him into another panic attack. Avi and Zach accompany Jake and the powder to Matcha's casino, where Avi eventually defeats Jake at chess while revealing the final details of the narrative. Avi and Zach had been the men in the jail cells adjacent to Jake's, and they were always planning to take him with them, but he wasn't ready to embrace the truth, hinting they were nothing more than figments of Jake's imagination. Unfortunately, he doesn't have time to process this when the casino's security arrives to take him to meet Matcha, who has the girl. After tossing the bags of powder on the floor, Jake encourages his niece that everything will be all right, which makes Matcha disappointed. Jake still shows no fear, even when aiming his gun at the child. Humiliation prompts Matcha's ego voices to conclude that Jake cannot hurt a dead man, so he places the gun on his head and shoots himself. We really hope you enjoyed today's recap of the movie Revolver. Please leave a comment below on what you loved about the movie and why. Be sure to like the video, and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing so you don't miss any amazing content. Until next time, light, camera, action. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.